The moment Jake Henderson placed a $20 bill in the cup of the homeless pregnant woman, their eyes met, and time stood still. It was Melissa, his ex-wife, who had walked out on him and their daughter 3 years ago. If you're wondering what happened next in this incredible true story of fate, forgiveness, and second chances, stay with me until the end. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us of the power of human connection. Jake stood frozen on the busy downtown sidewalk, the recognition hitting him like a physical blow. Melissa looked nothing like the confident, vibrant woman who had once been his wife. Her face was gaunt, her clothes tattered, and her eyes, once bright with ambition, now hollow with desperation. But there was no mistaking those eyes, the same ones that had once looked at him with love, then later with contempt, and finally with nothing at all when she'd walked out the door. "Melissa," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the city noise. She flinched at the sound of her name, then looked up properly. The shock on her face mirrored his own. "Jake," she breathed, instinctively covering her swollen belly with one hand while the other clutched her paper cup of spare change. 3 years earlier, their marriage had crumbled under the weight of grief and blame after their second child was stillborn. Melissa had spiraled into depression, then disappeared one day, leaving only a note saying she couldn't be a wife or mother anymore. She'd left Jake to raise their 5-year-old daughter, Emma, alone. Now here she was, pregnant and homeless, begging on the same street where Jake took Emma for ice cream every Saturday. "What happened to you?" he asked, his mind racing with conflicting emotions, anger, pity, confusion. Melissa's eyes welled with tears. "I made mistakes," she said simply. "So many mistakes." A businessman bumped into Jake, breaking the moment. Jake glanced at his watch. He needed to pick Emma up from her friend's birthday party in 20 minutes. But he couldn't just walk away. Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked. Melissa shook her head, shame evident in her downcast eyes. Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Come with me. Just to talk. Please." The drive to Jake's modest suburban home was silent and tense. Jake called Emma's friend's mother and arranged for Emma to stay a little longer. He needed time to figure out what to do. Inside his kitchen, the same kitchen where Melissa had once cooked Sunday breakfasts and birthday cakes, Jake made tea while Melissa sat awkwardly at the table, looking like a stranger in what had once been her home. "How far along are you?" Jake finally asked, placing a steaming mug in front of her. 7 months, she replied, her hand again moving protectively to her belly. "And the father?" Melissa's bitter laugh held no humor. "Gone. Like all the others who promised to take care of me after." She trailed off, unable to finish. Jake sat across from her, studying the woman he had once vowed to love forever. The woman who had abandoned him and their daughter without a backward glance. "Why were you on the street, Melissa? What happened after you left us?" The story poured out of her then, how she'd moved in with a man she barely knew, seeking escape from her grief and guilt. How that relationship had turned abusive. How she'd fled from one bad situation to another, self-medicating with alcohol and eventually drugs. How she'd hit rock bottom 6 months ago, discovered she was pregnant, and fought to get clean for her baby's sake. "I've been sober for 5 months, she said with a fragile pride. "But I lost my shelter bed last week when they reached capacity. I've been sleeping in the park." Jake listened, his heart a battlefield of conflicting emotions. This woman had caused him and Emma immeasurable pain. Yet here she was, carrying an innocent child, with nowhere to go. "Emma asks about you," he said finally. "Not as much anymore, but still sometimes." Melissa's face crumpled. "I don't deserve her remembering me at all." Before Jake could respond, the front door opened, and a small voice called out, "Daddy." "Mrs. Peterson brought me home early because Lily got sick." Jake's 8-year-old daughter bounded into the kitchen, then stopped abruptly, her eyes widening as she took in the stranger at their table. "Emma," Jake said carefully, "Do you remember Mommy?" Emma whispered, her voice small and uncertain. The reunion was awkward and tearful. Emma was confused, asking questions Jake couldn't fully answer. Why had Mommy left? Why was she back? Why was her tummy big? Was she staying? That night, after Emma was asleep, Jake made up the sofa bed in his office for Melissa. It was a temporary solution, he told himself. Just until he could help her find somewhere safe to go. "I'll be gone tomorrow," Melissa promised, reading his thoughts. "I shouldn't have come here. It's not fair to Emma to confuse her like this." "And where will you go?" Jake asked. Melissa had no answer. Days turned into weeks. Jake helped Melissa apply for assistance programs and prenatal care. He drove her to doctor's appointments and job interviews. They established careful boundaries. Melissa was a guest, not family. She would not step into a maternal role with Emma, who was still processing her mother's sudden reappearance. Emma, for her part, was cautiously curious about Melissa. She asked about the baby growing in Melissa's belly and showed her school art projects. But she clung to Jake at bedtime, whispering fears that Melissa would take her away or that Jake would leave too. "I will never leave you," Jake promised each night, holding his daughter close. "You are my whole world." As Melissa's due date approached, she found a job as a receptionist at a dental office and was approved for subsidized housing. She would be able to move into her own apartment the following month. "I can't thank you enough," she told Jake one evening as they sat on the porch, watching Emma ride her bike in the driveway. "You had every right to keep walking that day." Jake was quiet for a moment. "I almost did," he admitted. "I was so angry at you for so long, Melissa. For leaving. For making me explain to Emma why her mother didn't love her enough to stay." "That wasn't true," Melissa said softly. "I left because I thought she deserved better than me. I was so lost in my own pain after we lost the baby that I couldn't see past it. I couldn't be the mother she needed." "And now?" Jake asked. "Now I know running away solved nothing. It just created more pain." She looked at Emma, who was attempting to pop a wheelie. "She's amazing, Jake. You've done such a wonderful job with her." "She is amazing," Jake agreed. "And she deserves to know her mother, if her mother is ready to be in her life consistently. Not just now, but for good." Melissa nodded solemnly. "I want to try. I know I have to earn back trust. I know things can never be what they were. But I want to be someone Emma can count on." 2 days later, Melissa went into labor a month early. Jake rushed her to the hospital, calling his parents to stay with Emma. The delivery was difficult, with Melissa's blood pressure dangerously high and the baby showing signs of distress. In the waiting room, pacing anxiously, Jake realized something that shocked him. He cared what happened to Melissa. Despite everything, he didn't want to lose her again. After 6 tense hours, a tiny but healthy baby boy was born. Melissa was exhausted but stable. When Jake entered her hospital room, she was cradling her son, tears streaming down her face. "Jake," she said, looking up at him with wonder, "I'd like you to meet Noah." Jake approached cautiously, looking down at the tiny red face. "He's beautiful, Melissa." "I was so afraid," she confessed. "After what happened last time. I was terrified history would repeat itself." Jake understood. The shadow of their stillborn son had haunted them both. "But he's here," Jake said. "He's healthy." Melissa nodded, then asked hesitantly, "Would you like to hold him?" As Jake cradled the newborn, something shifted inside him. This wasn't his child, but in that moment, he felt a connection he couldn't explain. The following weeks were a blur of adjustments. Melissa and Noah moved into her new apartment, but Jake and Emma visited often. Emma was fascinated by her baby half-brother, proudly declaring herself his big sister. Slowly, carefully, Jake and Melissa rebuilt a friendship from the ashes of their marriage. They talked about the past, really talked, with honesty and vulnerability they'd never managed before. They acknowledged the grief that had torn them apart and the mistakes they'd both made. 6 months after Noah's birth, Melissa had established a stable life. She was excelling at her job, attending therapy, and proving herself a devoted mother to both Noah and, in her limited role, to Emma during their regular visits. One evening, as they sat watching the children play, Emma showing Noah a picture book though he was far too young to understand, Melissa turned to Jake. "I never thought I'd have this again," she said quietly. "A family. Even if it's not conventional." Jake nodded. "Life rarely turns out how we expect." "Do you think," Melissa asked hesitantly, "that people who've hurt each other badly can ever find their way back?" Jake considered the question carefully. "I think people can heal and forgive. I think new relationships can be built that honor the past without being trapped by it." "Is that what we're doing?" she asked. "I think we're finding our way," Jake replied. "One day at a time." A year after their chance encounter on that downtown street, Jake and Melissa sat together at Emma's school play. Noah, now walking and babbling, sat on Jake's lap while Emma performed on stage. They weren't a conventional family, but they were connected by love, forgiveness, and the choice to build something new from the ruins of what was lost. Jake had helped Melissa find her way back, not just to him and Emma, but to herself. And in doing so, he had found healing too. As they applauded Emma's performance, their hands brushed. Their eyes met, and they shared a smile, not of romantic love rekindled, but of something perhaps more valuable, understanding, forgiveness, and the promise of a future where past mistakes didn't define them. Sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most profound second chances. Sometimes helping a stranger in need, even one who once broke your heart, can open the door to healing you never thought possible. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Remember that compassion has the power to transform lives, sometimes even our own. Share in the comments if you've ever experienced an unexpected reunion that changed your life's direction. Your story might inspire someone else to extend a helping hand when it matters most.